Lord Wolfe, Harry, thank you so much for your very kind words. I have the great pleasure and privilege of sharing a corridor with Lord Wolfe, and we do bump into each other. No, I don't want to hear that. I'm going to talk a little bit tonight about how this book came about and what the story unraveled as I got to grips with the facts that emerged. You need to begin by taking yourself back to the summer of 2004. In April 2004, a United States TV program called 60 Minutes broadcast for the first time photographs, horrific photographs, of abuse at Abu Ghraib. It turned out that those photographs had been known to the upper echelons of the military, to the Pentagon in particular, and the Pentagon, Mr. Rumsfeld in particular, had asked the US press not to publish the photographs. Once the photographs and the accompanying videos emerged, a storm of protest and outrage erupted across the world, and the administration had to put in place a response strategy. The question, of course, that the administration faced more than any other was this: are these photographs the result of policies adopted by the administration of President Bush? The administration had to make sure that the answer to that question was seen to be a firm no. And to that end, on the 22nd of June 2004, it wheeled out two of its most senior officials, both lawyers, Alberto Gonzales, the President's counsel, and Jim Haynes, Donald Rumsfeld's lawyer, the general counsel at the Pentagon. They appeared in the old executive office, the Eisenhower office, right next to the White House, and they laid out a story which explained the circumstances in which they were able to robustly attack the proposition that the photographs at Abu Ghraib had anything to do with administration policy. And to support their case, they put out a series of documents in a couple of lever arch files to tell a story which in summary form basically said, we followed the law, we were meticulous in meeting our domestic and international obligations, we did not abandon the law, and the pictures that you have seen result from the actions of a few bad eggs down at Abu Ghraib. Buried amongst the documents was a one-page memorandum. Some of you have got it, I think, in front of you on your tables. Dated 27th of November 2002 and signed by Donald Rumsfeld on the 2nd of December 2002. It's an action memo authored by William J. Haynes II, who is the same person who stood up at the press conference, and handed out with Alberto Gonzales, who of course went on to be Attorney General, these documents. The document authorizes the use of new interrogation techniques on one man at Guantanamo, detainee 063, Mohammed al-Qahtani, who was thought and continues to be thought by the administration and by the independent 9/11 Commission to have been the 20th hijacker. Mohammed al-Qahtani is a Saudi Arabian national. He tried to gain entrance to the United States in August 2001, and he was refused entrance because he had inadequate cash, a one-way ticket, and an insufficient explanation as to why he was coming to the United States. And he was removed from the United States, sent back to the Middle East, and a few months later, in late November, was caught in the war in Afghanistan. couple of months after that, in January 2002, transported to Guantanamo, where he lingered for 6 months, going through the normal interrogation processes. And in June 2002, was identified as the very same man who had come into the United States at Orlando Airport in August 2001. By the time they identified him in June 2002, they had also established, on their account, that a man by the name of Mohammed Atta, who had spearheaded the 9/11 attacks, happened to be waiting in the arrivals area at Orlando Airport. And putting two and two together, they concluded on their account that Mohammed al-Qahtani was going to meet Mohammed Atta and was going to be the 20th hijacker. And this memorandum is the end result of the process that took the United States away from its traditional policies on interrogation into an area that violated the Geneva Conventions. The Rumsfeld Memo is significant because it appears to be the very first time since 1863 that the United States military has adopted, in a formal sense, the use of cruelty. In 1863, famously, President Lincoln adopted a disposition that military necessity does not admit of cruelty. And ever since then, for nearly 140 years, the US military has had an honorable tradition of restraint in the use of force. That is not to say there have not been abuses. We know there have been many, many, many abuses. But they have never been abuses that have been authorized so directly at the top and in so clear a breach of a traditional policy of restraint. And what Gonzalez and Haynes told the press was not only that they had followed with care and deliberation the law and the requisite processes, but that they had reacted to a request that had come from the bottom up. And that really was the heart of the story that they were telling. This was not a case of the administration imposing new techniques of interrogation on people down on the ground. This was a situation in which there had been a trickle up. The combatant commander at Guantanamo, later described by Jim Haynes as an aggressive major general, assisted by his lawyer, a staff judge advocate, had determined there was a need for new techniques of interrogation that abandoned traditional military policy reflected in the field manual. And this had made its way up through the normal channels, reached the Pentagon and Mr. Rumsfeld, and he had simply done what decent and prudent government would do, namely react positively to a reasonable request from a combatant commander on the ground. So that was the public story. And I looked at this document very, very carefully, and we're trained as barristers, as lawyers, as law students, as law professors, to look at documents very, very carefully and to find clues in pieces of paper, even as short as this, that indicate perhaps there may have been another story. And you will each look now at this piece of paper and you will say to yourself, what is it in this piece of paper that indicates something else may have happened? Well, I am not an aficionado of US military process, but I spotted a few things. I knew, for example, that on documents of this kind, it was normal for there to be a list of names with initials